Hi everyone, welcome to the Industrial Automation Control Training Room. This time, we will introduce the recipe functions of our new software. The recipe function is also the fundamental function of our HMI configuration programming software. It is a combination of a type of data with a fixed data structure. Recipe data refers to the data stored inside the HMI and in an area that can be saved after power failure. Our new software has significant upgrades in both storage space and functional usage in terms of recipe. For example, our recipe functions such as upload, download, import, and export are all integrated into the switch buttons. And our project can configure up to 100 recipe groups with a maximum of 1,080 recipe items per recipe. Now let's get started. First, find our recipe configuration located in the project bar on the left. Scroll down to find recipe, and then double-click Add Recipe. Now we enter our recipe edit interface, and this one is the name of our recipe group. We can customize and modify it here. Let's name it bread recipe. The following location is used to edit the content of entire recipe items of the recipe group. We can check whether to bind structure variables. The structure variable is a set of members with different data types that we can define by ourselves based on our needs. In addition to binding structure variable, there are also self-adding recipe items. We can click Add and add new recipe item. Choose the data type we need. As we expand list, we can see that it supports single bit, 8-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit, and 64-bit signed and unsigned numbers, as well as string and Boolean value. Let's take the commonly used bread ingredients as an example here. After clicking Add, we choose unsigned short for data type and give the name of recipe water. Then click Add again. Choose unsigned integer, flour, and we also need to bind the corresponding variables for them. Then the same operation, add, give the name of butter, and unsigned integer binds the variable butter. Finally, let's try an integer for milk, then binds the corresponding variable. Here is the recipe statistic data. The current operation recipe serial number must be bound. Then we will find a variable for it. The total recipe number and current operating recipe name can be checked. We can bind variables to them. Current total recipe number, current operating recipe name. Okay, so far we have already established a recipe group. Then we can assign values to these recipe item variables and upload them to our recipe. At the same time, if we know some recipe data, for convenience, we can directly add default recipe data. Here, click on recipe data on our left and click Create Default Recipe Data. Click Add to create a new recipe name like baguette. And we will provide the ingredient number randomly. You can also use the import and export function here for quick configuration. Then we will continue to add our recipe group content in the Excel file and save it. So let's export it to an Excel document. come to the Excel and find the document. And we just copy and paste the pre-made content to this document. Then close our file. Return to our software, click on Import, and select our Excel. And the import is successful. Because the recipe item baguette we created earlier is still in this position, we delete it to avoid duplication. This is all the default recipe data we have configured. Click OK, and our recipe configuration has been completed. Next, let's take a look at how to use the recipe. There is an information section under the components, which contains recipe, and we click on this. This is our recipe display component. The first step is to select a recipe group. So we select the bread recipe that we made before and modify the font properties of the title bar and the list here. To make the display more clear, we can also adjust the background color of our title bar, as well as the select color and line spacing. Then click OK. Then we will place this table in the recipe window. Let's take a look offline at our result this time. And we can see all the default recipe data we just created are displayed here. Next, let's talk about the function of recipe table, display components, and the switch settings related to the recipe. Starting with recipe action set in the set function. Click on recipe action set, which include import, export, delete, clear, download, upload, add, copy, and add. Then we first choose upload here and select the recipe group we want to upload. Select the graphic. Multi-copy these buttons. For this, we choose download and change the label here. And similarly, delete. And clear. Add. And copy and add. And import. For this function, we first need to select the recipe group we are importing, bread recipe. Then we set .csv file format. Then click OK. Oh, and then I forgot to change the label. Import. Finally, export. Select the recipe group and Okay, this is all the switch setting components related to our recipes. It can turn our upload and download functions into an integrated switch button. This makes it more convenient for us to directly call the switch function. Next, let's take a look at our table property. Here is the table edit function, and we check it. Then we bind the variable for edit status, and then save trigger variable. For the convenience of operation, we can also reset it for trigger type, then click OK. Now we need to release all the variables we used before. The first one is the recipe variables like water, butter, flour, and milk, which we can select as a number input. Select the variable water and customize the format. We just use 3 integer bits. Water, and the unit is milliliters. Then place it here. You can multi-copy these buttons. And second one is butter. The unit should be gram. Then the third one, flour. Unit gram. Finally, milk. Next, we need to release the variables used in our table, include the query function and our recipe editing function. We select the bit switch in the switch component and choose the variable of query status. Then place it for the multi-copies and change the corresponding label query status on, and the next state is off. Then we can multi-copy it. The second one is query trigger variable. Because we have selected reset in the trigger type of recipe query, we can simply set on for the switch type here. Then change the label. Then the third one is edit status. So bind the variable and change the label. The edit status includes our most common functions of uploading, downloading, deleting, and clearing. Then finally, save trigger variable. And we also need to enable the trigger functions and the editing functions in this table. So check the query function box and query status variable. Select query status and query trigger variable. Okay, we will take it offline to see its actual effect. switch to the recipe table. Let's take a look at our uploads and downloads. First, we select one of our recipes and download it into our variables. As you can see, the corresponding variables have been changed. We modify one of our variables and then upload to the recipe. And you can see the flour for the croissant has changed. And then we want to demonstrate this one by one again. Let's test our recipe query and recipe edit functions. Firstly, we need to enable our query status. And then you can see its query status, which is located here. We can directly input our conditions like what we did in an Excel file. For example, we can check for the water which is greater than 400 grams. So type in the number 400, click OK. Conduct a query to trigger. Then you can see only the bread with larger than 400 grams of water is displayed in this table. Now clear the filter and close our query status. Then turn on our editing status. Here we can edit our recipe depending on our needs. Then save it. Okay, that's everything I need to talk about today. Thank you and see you next time.